I'm here with Simon Jones and Jintao Shi, who are a couple of our 2019 Business Analytics and Information Management graduates. So congratulations to you guys. What I was hoping we could talk about today is maybe just kind of talk about, briefly describe one of the projects you worked on this year where you use, Scholar.
Mm-hmm. So I personally was your TA. So my main interactions with Scholar was setting up data sets for the other teams to be using for both their data mining projects and also occasionally for their industry practicum projects.
Did you feel it was easy to kind of interface, the data that you had set up in MySQL on our database server with some of the other tools the students use for projects?
For my part, I ended up making a program that ran on Jupyter. Everything already had a name, so when loading into MySQL, it was just a case of writing a program that can write the script to then load the data into the server for the students to then be able to use.
So why don't you tell me about the industry practicum project you worked on?
I was working on a national auto insurance company looking at the telemetry data for their insurees to see whether there's any indication of cause of accidents that could be included into like an actuarial model to set premiums and reserves for various trips based on both traditional level things of age, gender, marital status, as well as these telemetry level data such as average speed and turning radius.
So what were the kind of the key takeaways from the project?
We noticed that there was a significant difference between people that were speeding. Our conclusions were that going 130% of the speed limit is more dangerous than going 150% of the speed limit. Presumably because if you're going 150% of the speed limit is probably lower. Mm-hmm. Our assumption is that those are people doing like 45 miles an hour in a 30 mile an hour zone and not people going like 120 on the interstate.
So people that participate in, say, this, using telematics data, I think if people aren't familiar with that, basically it's a device you can put into your car that measures your driving behavior, and some companies offer an app, like a phone app, that can also measure those sorts of things, such as how you drive, your stopping and starting behavior. Did you feel like there was any sort of bias in sort of your final results because the people that were in your study?
Yeah, so that was our major concern. For the drivers that were participating, there was a noticeable dip in their accident rate, presumably because they were now being watched and monitored for their driving behavior. And we also noticed that those drivers that were participating were slightly better drivers than the average driver in their program.
Jintao, thanks for being here today. Why don't you briefly tell me a little bit about the project you worked on and just some of the outcomes from the project?
We worked with a vacation rental company, and the company expecting us to give some insight from their competitors' data. So we started from scraping the website of their competitors and to give them the insight. But we go further beyond that. We built a predictive model with this external data combining with their internal data to predict the probability of a room being sold or not on a particular day. And we use this intermediate result to feed an optimization model to get the best price to set to maximize the overall revenue. Okay. So we couldn't do this without using Scholar platform because the optimization part is pretty computational intensive,
Sure.
and we could run parallel computing on our laptop and the Scholar, like 4 of us.
Okay.
And we did this on a very tight timeline.
So what kind of outcomes did you have from this project?
Yeah, we actually theoretically improved their revenue 20%.
So the idea is you're trying to figure out what the price is for several different rentals on every day so that they maximize their overall revenue.
Yes.
Okay. So did you using this platform to do this project, what kind of outcomes from a student did you feel like, from learning outcomes that did you get?
Yes. In the process, we wanted to use what we learned from our class and make some like real business impact in the real world, and we just keep asking ourselves, what if we do this, and so what, and what we can suggest the company to make the decision. Really give us an insight, and it's a typical analytics process, general project.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like it was really an interesting project where not only did you learn how to crawl or scrape data offline, but you also had you had the experience to build different predictive models, and you had sort of the prescriptive analytics or optimization sort of experience as well, which is really interesting. Sometimes a partner will just want us to focus on one thing, but it sounded like you guys had an opportunity to kind of develop a whole solution end to end on how do you incorporate kind of external data with internal data and do something useful for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did either of you guys feel like the platform made it more accessible to analyze large data sets compared to, say, what you're usually used to working on, say, on your laptop or your computer?
Even Scholar wasn't large enough, but it was able to load the data in much larger chunks than it would be for personal computers, meaning that we were both able to train better models because at one iteration step it can see a larger scope of the data to train down on, but also cuts down tremendously because for that specific project the load and unload steps were actually the most time-consuming parts of the data.
What advice would you give future BAIM students to help them seamlessly transition from working on your laptop to working in the cloud using a tool such as Scholar?
I would recommend that they just let go at the beginning of the process, because transitioning from one method to another is the biggest hassle. Take Matt's advice and and just embrace it for what it is. You will be able to do your analysis much faster, much easier.
But for me, my personal experience is that last September, my computer broke down, and I have to use a platform that is stable to do the homework. Have you ever experienced like a shut down a file without saving, and you have to do it from the beginning? And that using this Scholar platform, you can like avoid that happening.
Well, hey, today was a great interview. Thanks so much, Jintao and Simon, for coming and talking about your projects and just kind of the success stories you've had from using our platform. So for all you guys out there that are interested in Krannert and BAIM, boiler up.